What if I told you Ford has an illegitimate car? A car that was so out of the ordinary, so against the grain, that its parent company vowed to suppress its promising potential. 28 years on since it was discontinued, yet Ford has just completely ignored its existence, allowing it to go misunderstood amongst car enthusiasts. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is a story of unfair expectations, self-sabotage, from car of the year to letdown of the century. This is the Ford Thunderbird Supercoupe. So the story starts here. Not exactly at Ford headquarters, but in my garage. It's Christmas Eve and I decide I'm gonna get myself something to drink. So there I go into the garage to reach the fridge. It was supposed to be a quick grab and go, but it wasn't. I found myself completely stopped in my tracks before I could even get to the fridge. There I was standing, staring at it. I just had the sudden urge to whip out my phone and start recording it. So basically the footage you're watching is the result of my weird epiphany on Christmas Eve. Because there's something about this car that's not publicly known, that's gone under the radar. The Thunderbird is one of Ford's most storied nameplates. It actually started off as one of Ford's flagship vehicles in the mid-50s. It was their direct response to none other than the Chevrolet Corvette. These two were meant to be eternal rivals, both the designated symbols of speed and performance way back in the day. But is that what really ended up happening? At first, yeah. But with each passing generation, the Thunderbird just fizzled out while the Corvette kept its core identity for what made it so iconic. That sportiness, the speed, the performance. For some reason, Ford's leadership turned the Thunderbird into a chaser of norms, ditching its core identity altogether. Because first, it was a convertible sports car, then a hardtop coupe. Still great, but not quite what we had originally. Then a family sedan, and who can forget the land yacht era of the 70s, where even a lawnmower had better MPG than those yachts. Its identity was changed so many times over the years, and it just sank its popularity with consumers. By the time we got to the mid-80s, the Thunderbird was nothing more than the Mustang sidekick in the Fox body era. The Robin to the Mustang's Batman, except this Robin right here had Down syndrome and a peanut allergy. Because no matter what the Thunderbird received, and trust me, it got some pretty cool things. They slapped a turbo on it right from the factory, which was something fresh. It was a revelation. The Thunderbird was meant to be a more refined version of the Mustang. Refined in everything except horsepower and pound-feet of torque. Because when it came to tuning, Ford intentionally tuned the Thunderbird to be slower than the Mustang, even though its capabilities were more than that. They intentionally nerfed its potential to uplift a Mustang that, quite frankly, it was good, but it was nothing special. Ford couldn't allow the narrative to come true that the Thunderbird was the better car, even though, in reality, it was. The Thunderbird's potential would continue to be suppressed all throughout that Fox body generation until an interesting shift occurred within the Ford higher-ups. Let me explain. As the 90s dawned, Ford quickly realized that there was a new automotive trend on the horizon, and that companies like BMW and Mercedes were already capitalizing on the American consumer's new demand for this type of vehicle. What type of vehicle am I talking about? The personal luxury coupe. Sporty, aerodynamic, 2 doors, something that prioritized comfort and performance. People who lived the era will tell you that anybody who was somebody would drive a Mercedes or some sort of German performance car in that time because that was the new item. Ford saw this and immediately wanted in on that market. So what did they do? They appointed Tony Kuchta, a lead designer that had been at Ford for over 30 years. But he and the executives knew that making a brand new car to add into the Ford lineup was just not an option and not in the company's best interest. Ford needed it to be an existing product in their lineup that could be transformed to take on these German luxury sport coupes head on. Something that would be changed, redesigned for a new generation. But the thing is, Ford only had two premier coupes at the time, the Mustang and the Thunderbird. The Mustang obviously was off limits to use for this project because Ford didn't want its image to be tarnished by a risky experiment. They needed it to be something that, well, if it fails, we tried. Oh well, it needed something new, and if it succeeds, great, it needed something new, if that makes sense. So by process of elimination, that left the Thunderbird to be chosen for this project, and Tony Kuchta knew exactly what to do and wasted no time in designing his new vision for the 10th generation Thunderbird. And let me tell you, he cooked. When it came to redesigning this new generation of Thunderbirds, Tony made sure to leave no stone unturned. It started off with an all-new platform built from scratch called the MN12, featuring a longer wheelbase than its outgoing predecessor, focusing on stability and better handling, which were key characteristics of a German luxury coupe. As for the exterior look of this car, they also cooked up something special. The car was sleek, aggressive, not too aggressive, but just the right amount, fierce looking, aerodynamic, which was a key component in this whole project to begin with, paired with some 16-inch alloy wheels, which really was the cherry on top because those wheels were also aerodynamic and they looked badass. But you might be saying to yourself, yeah, the aesthetic is cool and all, but what about the actual performance? Did Ford also nerf this like they did in the previous generations? Absolutely not. This car was packing under the hood, not in the most conventional way, but with something new. Try a supercharged V6 with an intercooler straight from the factory, one of the first cars to come out with the OEM supercharger straight from the factory, because before that was more of an aftermarket type of thing. But yeah, it was controversial because everyone expected it to have a V8 like most performance cars of the time, but quite frankly, it didn't need those two extra cylinders because it was still making an impressive 210 horsepower with 315 pound-feet of torque. It was also matched with either a 5-speed manual transmission, which was produced by Mazda, or an automatic. It did a 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds, and it hit the quarter mile in about 15.9 seconds at 87 miles per hour. And before y'all try to clown on those performance numbers, just remember, for a car like that to be making this much power in the 90s with a 6-cylinder, unheard of. It basically has the practicality of a Mazda Miata, except this one actually has some freaking OEM performance. I said what I said, sue me. As if I had to name any more reasons to buy into this car's performance, I'll still name a few more. This car had disc brakes on all 4 corners, adjustable ride control, credible handling and suspension with independent rear suspension, something that only one other North American car had. Do you know which one it was? The Chevrolet Corvette. How ironic. When it came to designing a luxurious interior for the new Supercoupe, Kuchta really blew it out of the water with this one. I'm talking about 5-way adjustable bucket seats with lumbar bolstering, sidebar bolstering, automatic seatbelts, which seem like a clunky invention today, but I actually think it's kind of cool. Analog gauges, for crying out loud, as well as a pretty sporty steering wheel. You could also input some more luxurious options such as a sunroof, JBL OEM sound system, auto dimming headlights, and much more. When the Supercoupes finally hit the dealership lots in late '88, the car was actually received pretty well by the public. It was everything it was supposed to be, so much so that Motor Trend labeled it Car of the Year, which was a great achievement for a debuting vehicle. The car also sold pretty well for its first year, totaling almost 13,000 units sold, but its real peak came the following year in 1990, where it sold a staggering 21,000 units, and to give y'all some perspective, they only made about 58,000 of these throughout its entire 8-year production run. Crazy stuff if you ask me, but unfortunately the magic did not last. After 1990, sales just plummeted because it just couldn't keep the same momentum that it had in its first 2 years of production. Why? Two reasons. One, Ford's fault. Two, the market. Let's get into it. When the car originally came out in '89, where it sold solid as well as winning Motor Trend's Car of the Year, Ford engineers thought it was a success, a smash hit, exactly what the market needed. Everyone was happy, even Tony Kuchta. But who wasn't happy? Ford executives, Ford corporate. Ford corporate absolutely hated the idea of this car simply because the production costs were a lot higher compared to other cars in their lineup. That and sales after 1990 were just plummeting because the market shifted yet again. The whole personal luxury coupe era that was sweeping through the 80s was slowly dying and pretty much gone by the late 90s. The market was now favoring practical four-door sedans, minivans, and as you guys know, the holy grail SUVs, the gas guzzlers that we all know of, the Tahoe, the Navigator. Practicality was dominating the market come the late 90s. And unfortunately for the Thunderbird, it just couldn't survive because the demand was just too low. Ford corporate saw this as the perfect opportunity to yet again stop the project in its tracks and strip it of its goodies throughout the years. As for Tony Kuchta, he was ultimately outed as the scapegoat for the Thunderbird's drop in sales and, well, forced into early retirement. They thought he had pushed the envelope too far with all these innovations, but in reality, they just got into the market a bit too late. With Kuchta away from the creative helm, the car was basically repurposed from a sports coupe to an old man's walker. That's pretty much what happened. In 1994, the car was completely refreshed. It was still kinda good, but just nowhere near what it used to be. The car just lost its overall aggressive look that us enthusiasts really came to appreciate about the car. The performance was still there. The interior, not so much, but it was still a decent car. But unfortunately, the Supercoupe would come to a halt by the end of 1995 as it was officially discontinued for good. By 1997, man, the car was just a shell of itself, offered only as a mid-trim level vehicle. It might as well have been a rebranded tourist because the look was just not it. But unfortunately, that's how this underrated gem's story came to a close. In conclusion, it's a shame to see that this car never truly reached the heights it was destined for, because I truly think this would have been special in the right time. Had this car just been released a few years earlier in the height of the luxury performance coupe era, it would have truly done well, and I think it would have sustained the hype throughout its entire generational run. Ford would have not seen it as a failure. They would have invested more money into the program. There would have been more innovations. The car would be remembered in a much better way than it is today. Today, it's viewed as a failure, and back then, sure, objectively speaking, it was because it didn't make enough money, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a great car. As a Supercoupe owner myself, it's sad to see that this car went under the radar for so long, forgotten from everybody's memory. I actually went to go see that new movie from Leonardo DiCaprio, One Battle After Another, and I was shocked to see that this car made a cameo in that movie. It goes on to show that no matter how forgotten this car may appear to be, there's some out there that truly appreciate its potential for what it was and what it is today. I sincerely hope that this car jumps up in the trends sometime in the future and it becomes a household favorite between car enthusiasts. But if it doesn't, oh well, no worries. The few of us who do appreciate this car know what we have. If you're ever interested in picking up one of these for yourself, they're pretty accessible out in the market. The only ones that go for a pretty penny are the collection ones, the ones that have really low miles, very well preserved, etc, etc. The anniversary edition also goes for quite a few. But generally, Supercoupes, especially the 5-speed ones, are pretty accessible, and if you ask me, the best ones to buy are the 89 to 93 model years. A great car overall, forgotten by time, definitely worth the money. Thank you for watching the video, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed this car story. Until next time.